In your work that you've been doing for now a long period of time, you've been talking about entrepreneurship and the need for us to transform and schools to transform themselves into entrepreneurial enterprises. What's that mean in reality?
Well, actually it meant different kind of things. I think the first thing it meant that we need a different kind of students or graduates that traditionally schools have been preparing employees that is compliant, homogeneous workforce to find a job that has been created by a few creative, innovative entrepreneurs. As those jobs have been replaced by machines, as we enter the second machine age, and where technology is truly replacing cognitive functions or knowledge-driven skills, we need to rethink what our students can be. Those jobs are disappearing. The jobs are disappearing also in the age of globalization because of offshoring. They are being sent to places that will cost less. So a lot of the skills traditional schools are trying to cultivate are no longer valuable. What we need is people who can create jobs, services, and opportunities, who can take advantage of the opportunity actually created by new technology and globalization to rethink. Therefore, schools must cultivate a different type of talents. I call them entrepreneurs in social causes, entrepreneurs in government, entrepreneurs within large organizations. We call them intrapreneurs and business entrepreneurs. And to do so, that meant the second thing, schools have to transform because our schools were designed for the age of industrial revolution to cultivate people to find jobs. Now, in order for us to cultivate people to create jobs, we need to think ourselves as a new type of enterprise, and that's global, which also means a global enterprise means schools have to function like a global business, that we can source our teachers, our resources, our textbooks, are all learning things from globally, instead of confined learning opportunities to what's available within local entity. We also need to think our children as global entrepreneurs because they have to learn to interact, work with people from other places in the age of globalization, and that means we need to produce global products. And finally, it means that we do not have to think our school as physically located in one place, that our children can conduct learning activities globally as well.
The change that you've outlined there has profound impact across the whole business of schools. Particularly, what's it mean for teachers and teaching?
Well, it's a big shift. That's, I think, because teacher's role has traditionally really been the primary information holder and transmitter. And today, with almost ubiquitous access to all kinds of information, over 90%, perhaps 95% of human knowledge is digitized. That is, when you have a smart device, you can access anywhere, as you've written, Greg. So teachers, the key for them is not try to compete with Google or YouTube, that I try to know more than Google. Instead, they shift their role as more human. Teachers have to become more human. They become the motivator, the inspirer of students. They create a social and emotional, psychological context for students to develop the non-academic, non-cognitive skills, which are become more important, like confidence, risk-taking, learn how to fail, resilience, great, all those kind of new attributes that requires human. Technology cannot do that. The other major shift for teachers to consider is that they not try to lecture all the time, to teach all the time. They can think themselves as curators of learning opportunities. I like to think the future school is like a museum, that you have a very different kind of spots of display. Those are opportunities. Students can choose to spend more time in front of one painting, another piece of artifact, but teachers have to curate them carefully. You want to say there are certain pathways that's more productive than others. There's more interesting pathways, but you don't never impose what students should learn. You guide them in the process. So I would say a curator, a motivator, an inspirer person that can help students grow as a human being.
Yeah. Yong, you've been very outspoken about PISA and the impact it's had on schooling across the world. What's the future for PISA?
Well, I think PISA, as any testing, any like your NAPLAN, in the U.S. we have all these common assessments coming down, and any test is very limited. It only tests what students can do on that test, unless you can make huge longitudinal studies to link that test truly has validity implying in the future. But PISA is making really grand claims that says we are measuring students' ability to succeed in the 21st century, which is no empirical data for that. That claim is very broad, and another reason is that PISA really measures about 3 domains, math, reading, and science, and 3 test scores can hardly be used to judge a system's past and its future. It's trying to predict the future. It's impossible. The biggest problem is that PISA now has become the de facto policy device in many countries to drive education. It's misleading, it's misguiding. And another big problem for me is that PISA's measure is always measured what education has done in the past, not education can be done, education can do in the future. So it drives countries to borrow from each other. Makes education a short-term policy fix. It doesn't work. And most of the PISA findings cannot really be directly imported in any place. So it causes people's unnecessary anxiety, drives efforts to waste money, and actually races to the past, not to the future. So today, I think any such national or international assessments have to be very careful. They can narrow educational opportunities and not help us to invent the future. And most important, actually, what bothers me is that we have so many opportunities presented to us in education. PISA makes us forget we need to invent, not to copy.
In what you've been talking about today, you've provided a range of challenges for governments, policymakers, for teachers, for schools, for students, and particularly for parents who might be very concerned. What's the future for schooling?
Well, I think this message is especially important for parents. I think we all need to recognize there are times in human history that drastic transformation takes place and redefines what's valuable in the future. And let's say 100 years ago, learning to drive a horse wagon, be a teamster, might be a very good, cool job, profession, but it's gone. Or learn to make horse wagons. It was a very good job. And or go find a job work for Henry Ford or General Motors. Those jobs are gone. And even how to live in the community is gone. 100 years ago, you live in your little community. Today, you have to interact with people globally. These new skills and new talents, either for economical reasons or for the simple happiness of living, or for us as a human civilization to survive, we have to learn to work with each other to create new things. And schools today are not doing that. And government policies are actually counterproductive in designing a new school. So school will have hope. I hope parents would understand the truly future school is not going to homogenize your children into just like everybody else, but to help your children develop their strength. Not fix their deficit, develop their strength, because human diversity is going to become very important in a world with 7 billion people. You have to differentiate yourself. You have to be great, and that greatness cannot come from a national curriculum.
I think that's a wonderful way to finish this discussion, because it's about hope, ultimately, isn't it?
Exactly.
We can do it.
Yes, we definitely can. The question is that, do we have the courage to do it? Innovation always comes from courageous people, and that needs to happen. We need innovators from our students, our teachers, and our schools. And I think with leaders like you, Greg, hopefully we will be able to create something new. There is hope, but someone has to help us realize that hope.
Thanks very much. Thank you.